Since June the 16th, when South African troops and police opened fire on a peaceful school children's demonstration, the white government has presided over the largest massacre of its black population since South Africa came into existence. Hundreds of blacks have died, thousands have been wounded, but the white Prime Minister says there is no crisis. The killings started in Soweto, the huge black township outside Johannesburg. On June the 16th, Soweto's school children gathered in protest against the introduction of compulsory teaching in Afrikaans, the main dialect of the ruling white minority. They met dogs, tear gas and bullets. The schoolboy who led that day's protest was 19-year-old Tsetsi Mashinini.
All of a sudden, they just went out of their cars and came advancing towards us. The first white policeman threw a tear gas. It was the first time we saw a tear gas can. We didn't know even what it was. So when we saw it emitting smoke, we dispersed. And when we came back again. Maybe we thought they would talk to us through a loudspeaker or something like that. All of a sudden, the same policeman who threw the tear gas canister opened fire on the students. I was with Hector Peterson when he was shot. The boy who was in that picture where a boy was carrying. He was the first student I saw going down. I saw him being shot on the head and he fell down. I could not believe it. I saw a boy of about 11 going down under police fire. I could not believe it. Apparently, when Hector was shot, the students ran back and I was left with Hector and a girl. I was feeling scared and I wanted to run away too. And this policeman was aiming his gun at Hector again, wanting to finish him off. And this girl stood in front of Hector and told the policeman in Afrikaans that skit for me, shoot for me. And the policeman deviated his aim and shot in the air. And then we took that Hector and gave him to some boys and they took him to the car, which appeared in those pics in the UBJ bulletin.
Hector Peterson was 13 years old. Hundreds of blacks were swiftly arrested, including Mrs. Oshadi Pakati, mother of 4 and national president of South Africa's YWCA.
There was so much noise the whole night, and we could hear that there was noise in the police station too. Everybody was kept moving. But
what sort of noise? What?
You know, the kind of noise that sort of displayed an atmosphere of jubilation, you know, a Christmas Eve or a New Year's Eve.
But by daybreak, there was no cause for jubilation. The streets and the mortuaries were strewn with dead. Most of them were children.
This is how it was reported last week by John Fielding of the This Week team for British television. The South African Prime Minister John Vorster still says, after hundreds have died in the past 3 months, there is no crisis. But this was the reaction of the world's press in June. Africa, crisis in black and white. Soweto, all the years of black anger explode. The burning face of Africa. The powder keg has grown, has been refused. Now it is lit. Tomorrow the whole of Africa could be burning. From Soweto, just outside Johannesburg, the violence has spread to many other areas. The Minister of Justice, James Kruger, has given this warning.
Agitators who do not cease their activities immediately will be prevented from continuing with it by being placed in detention in terms of the Internal Security Acts. Strong police units will be on hand to deal with any person who may try to cause a disturbance on Tuesday or on any other day. These units will have instructions to protect law-abiding citizens and property at all costs, and to do so with all the means at their disposal.
Why has there been such a reaction to what seemed to be a purely educational decision about the use of Afrikaans in schools? The government blames agitators, who they say stir up trouble among the non-white people. most of whom just want to live their lives in peace. Meetings are often prohibited.
This gathering is prohibited by the minister. You are now ordered to disperse, and you must depart from this place of gathering immediately.
The government blames foreign influence and interference, especially from black African states, the frontline states, Angola, Botswana, Zambia, Mozambique and Tanzania. Above all, the South African government blames the influence of communism in southern Africa. They claim the communists are inspired by the Soviet Union, that they interfere with black leaders and agitators and plot to overthrow white South Africa. As John Fielding put it to Tsetse, the student leader.
It's more than likely, Tsetse, that you're being described up and down the country at the moment as a communist.
There is no truth in that as far as I'm concerned. It is just that in South Africa, if you're not doing what the government expects you to do, then you are a communist, of course.
Many countries are quick to blame others for their problems, but the South African government seems very defensive, especially in the area of racial policy, as Mr. Forster said 2 years ago.
Ladies and gentlemen, this government, this nationalist party has been governing South Africa for 26 years under very difficult circumstances in the face of a hostile world. And I say to you, apart from anything...
Why does the government think and act as it does? The racial policy of the South African government is called Apartheid. It means separate development and is an Afrikaans word. Those who support this policy say that separate development is the best way to preserve the traditions and cultures of each of the ethnic groups in South Africa. This is how Dr. Verwoerd, when Prime Minister, justified apartheid on moral grounds in 1960.
While the white man, as in the past, will remain the ruler over white South Africa as it develops out of this union of ours, he, as the guardian of the black man, will see to it that his development does take place in such a fashion that the black masses, as they become free, do really become free. We will not force independence from outside and from above. We will build up their democratic freedom from the bottom upwards, so that as freedom is obtained, the masses will be right for it.
Some changes have been made to apartheid this year by the government. The changes include allowing multiracial sport, so the New Zealand rugby team agreed to come and play in South Africa in June. The government felt that changes like this would meet the demands of blacks and colours, but they've had a mixed reception. In April, a leading opposition politician, Helen Suzman, said about the changes.
Well, some of them are important and some of them really are just cosmetic. I would say that the petty apartheid notices, the removal of those, may mean something to some of the population, but in the main, the major changes have been through economic forces rather than through anything else, and also, I might say, through international pressure, such as in the sports policy. The economic forces come from inside. In other words, there are just not enough skilled whites to do the jobs that are reserved for them, or the government would like to reserve for whites only. So many of these jobs have slipped into the hands of black workers. And today in South Africa, as you walk around, you'll find black people doing jobs that they did not do only a few years ago. So that's an important change, but it doesn't stem directly from Mr. Forster's give us a year and you'll see great changes.
Mrs. Suzman is an opposition leader. Can we rely on her views? People's basic attitudes are not easily altered. Listen to another reaction to changes in the apartheid laws.
Are you honestly sorry that these changes have occurred?
No, I'm not sorry. I like to see them come up, but at the same time, can I say that I would rather see it coming up with some education, but they've got no education, and it'll take them a couple of 100 years. They've only just come down from the trees.
The government's view on apartheid is more easily accepted by many whites for two reasons. The first reason is the way apartheid works. Watch these scenes. What do you notice? Yes, apartheid in practice means that while blacks are often in white areas as workers, whites are seldom in black areas, except as police and officials. How can you understand people with whom you have no contact in their own surroundings? Secondly, the government's view on apartheid is accepted by many whites because of the information they're allowed to receive. The government controls radio and television and makes sure that its views are heard more powerfully than those of anyone else. As a South African broadcaster has said, with propaganda, you never let up. It was the determination of Afrikaners to control education more completely that sparked off the Soweto riots. But why should children become involved in a political protest? And why now? Listen to the views of one of the new adult leaders in Soweto, Dr. Manus Buthelezi.
Remember that there's a basic difference between this younger generation and the generation of their parents, in that these students are the products of Bantu education. Most of us were raised in an educational system which, even though it had its own shortcomings, but took as a presupposition a common South African society. So you were educated in order to fit in this common society. But these students have been raised in the framework of Bantu education, where they have been told that they are being educated for a place in their own community, a place which is politically circumscribed through the policy of separate development.
As John Fielding has reported,
the children exposed the sham. The integrated society of which their parents dreamed had disappeared. Under separate development, whites educated their children properly and for nothing. Blacks paid for their children's apprenticeship in servitude.
Bantu education, separate education for blacks, was set in motion by Dr. Favod when Minister of Native Affairs. In 1954, he made the following statement: "When I have control over native education, I will reform it so that the natives will be taught from childhood that equality with Europeans is not for them." As a black teacher explains,
it is difficult to imagine, to gauge the depth of feeling. You've got to be black and to live among these kids to realize just how much they hate the imposition of this system called Bantu education. Many of them can quote the words used by Dr. Verwoerd in that fateful debate when he said that there is no reason to educate the black child to the same extent as the white. There is no need to teach a Bantu child mathematics or anything like that when he will never need to use that science of mathematics in his situation.
Rights kawantuan.
Actually, Verwoerd said that all you need to teach the black child is the ability to understand the white master.
But in this government book, published in 1974, widely distributed outside South Africa, describing the education system, it says, The education of Bantu has increasingly been geared to the personal, social and economic needs of the Bantu-speaking peoples, both in their homelands and in South Africa as a whole. Photographs show what is being done. The caption for this photograph says, "They have a bright future, whether educated in their own homeland or in South Africa." But listen to the teacher again and watch.
Bantu education prepares the black child for a subsequent role in society.
We make your water soapy, and then we can steep the cottons. Because cotton is stronger when wet than when dry, so we can rub it in the hands. Now, just show me how to rub this. Show me. Show us the rubbing. Let's get those three to come and do this rubbing here.
They give us Bantu education so that they can justify their racial discrimination against blacks. It teaches that we can never do things like they do, because at all times the black man must remain subservient to a white man. That the black man must never be able, to compete with the white man in job situations.
And Forest Hill.
Johannesburg's labour exchange for blacks. In South Africa, most white officials are Afrikaners, and it was their language that became the focal point of protest against Bantu education.
Okkie is diep in gedagte terwyl hy hankend aanstap skool toe. Hy stap alleen omdat hy nog niemand by die nuwe skool ken nie. Hy is 'n nuwe...
At secondary school, Bantu education decrees that subjects must be taught in English and Afrikaans as well as the mother tongue. Frequently, the rules were broken because of difficulties in finding blacks who would teach their subject in Afrikaans.
Because the children have this negative attitude towards Afrikaans. The Afrikaans teacher in the classroom is going to try and force these kids to study Afrikaans. So at all times, Afrikaans is associated with force and very, very harsh people.
Kom nie, dat beteken verstaan. Hy moet nou weer van voor af maats maak. Hy het 'n gawe klompie vriende gehad op Keerwerder, maar nou het sy pa besluit dat hy vir sy hoërskooljare in die koshuis op Verenwil moet kom bly.
What will be the result of all this? Will the government change its policies? How will the non-white people react? Listen again to the report on British television last week.
Massacre at the hands of the police is nothing new to black South Africans. At Sharpeville in 1960, police shot dead 69 blacks who were demonstrating against the pass laws that regulate their existence. 178 others were wounded.
After Sharpeville, well, there was a lot of some kind of feeling just because death had taken place. But to me, as compared to now, not a wide awakening of determination, to fight through like we feel now.
What is needed is not just a readjustment in the details of the policy, but a change of policy altogether. I think that's what is needed. In other words, separate development is not a solution, it is a problem.
The system has done so many things and so much harm to my people that the people are no longer interested in having equal rights with the white people in South Africa. They want the tables to be turned so that the white man can get a taste of his own medicine and feel what it was like to be oppressed.